People think death rows are loud. Screaming, begging, rage. They're wrong. The quiet is what gets you. The kind that settles into your bones and whispers, "This is how it ends." I learned that over 17 cycles working the Crimson Pits, a place designed to turn living beings into entertainment. I've watched creatures that could rip tanks apart cry when the gates opened. I've seen champions vomit before stepping into the sand. So when they brought in the human, laughing like he'd wandered into a bar instead of a slaughterhouse, I knew something was wrong. My name is Vrock. Officially, I'm a corrections facilitator. Unofficially, I keep monsters locked up until the crowd decides how they die. The Crimson Pits don't care who you are or what you've done. They care about blood, spectacle, and odds. And the odds always favor the house. That morning started like any other. The transport arrived late, chains clanking, guards barking orders. I was halfway through my third cup of Jezik brew, an awful stimulant that tastes like melted wiring, when I heard it. Laughter. Not the broken kind. Not hysterical. Real laughter. The kind you hear when someone tells a good joke. I looked up. The human stood in restraints, head tilted back, grinning at something one of the guards had said. Average height. Lean. No claws, no armor, no visible augmentations. Just soft skin and an expression that didn't belong in a place like this. I pulled up the file without much interest. Specimen 7439. Name, Jake Mercer. Age, 32 standard cycles. Species, human. Crimes listed below made me pause. Assault on a council dignitary. Destruction of protected property. Public indecency. I read it twice to be sure. Apparently, the human had attended a diplomatic event, consumed too much alcohol, punched a Valoran ambassador, shattered an antique sculpture, and finished the evening by relieving himself in a ceremonial fountain. The punishment was immediate and non-negotiable. Death by combat. I finally looked at him properly. He noticed and waved, chains rattling as he lifted both hands. "Morning," he said cheerfully. "Wow. This place really commits to the color red, huh?" The guard stared. So did the other prisoners. "You understand where you are," I said. "And what happens here?" He shrugged. "Yeah. More or less. More or less." That was new. While the guards processed him, he kept talking. Asked questions. Made comments. When told he'd be fighting in the arena, he nodded like someone had just explained a difficult chore. "Is it one-on-one?" he asked. "Or more of a surprise situation?" "You'll be assigned opponents based on survival projections," I said. "Ah. Love a mystery." A Quarian guard beside me snorted. "He won't last minutes." Jake looked at him, curious. "What am I fighting?" "A razor wing," I answered. 4 meters tall. Talons can cut through reinforced plating. "Okay," he said slowly. "So not a metaphor." I assigned him to a holding cell overlooking the arena floor. Most prisoners hated that view. Watching others die tends to speed up despair. Jake leaned against the viewport instead, hands resting casually on the barrier. "Do people ever win?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Rarely." "How rarely?" "If you survive 10 matches, you're free." That caught his attention. His smile sharpened, not wider, but focused. 10, he repeated. "So it's possible." 4 have done it, I added. "In 2 centuries." He laughed softly. "Well, that's 4 more than 0. That night, I heard singing during patrol. Human music. Calm. Steady. Completely out of place. When I told him to keep it down, he apologized. When I warned him he'd be in the arena within days, he nodded. Then I guess I should make it count. That was when I realized something unsettling. He wasn't pretending not to be afraid. He was choosing not to let fear decide what came next. And that, in the Crimson Pits, was more dangerous than claws or fangs. The first fight came faster than I expected. 3 days after Jake arrived, his name appeared on the roster. Most new prisoners get at least a week to break down before the arena claims them. The crowd prefers desperation. But curiosity is a powerful thing, and the Crimson Pits had never hosted a human before. They wanted to see how quickly he'd fold. I was assigned to escort him to the preparation chamber. When I opened his cell, I found him on the floor doing push-ups, sweat slicking his skin, breath controlled. "You're up," I said. "Yeah," he replied, pushing himself to his feet. "Figured." His hands trembled slightly as I locked the restraints, but his expression stayed steady. Not fearless, focused. The preparation chamber smelled like metal, oil, and old blood. Kess, the equipment master, tossed him standard light armor and a short blade. Nothing fancy. Nothing designed to keep him alive for long. Jake examined the weapon carefully, testing the grip, the weight, the balance. "Not great," he muttered. "But I've worked with worse." "You have combat experience," I said. "Marines," he replied. "Infantry. Earth conflicts." That explained the way he moved. Not graceful, but deliberate. Efficient. The announcement echoed through the corridors. "Combatant 7439, report to South Gate." Jake rolled his shoulders, took a slow breath, then looked at me. "Hey Vrock," he said. "If I don't come back, tell the old guy next door not to give up." "Grant," I said. "He's survived 12 matches." Jake smiled. "Then he's still got stories left to tell." The gate rose. The arena roared. Thousands of voices merged into one thunderous sound as Jake stepped onto the sand. Across the pit, the opposite gate opened, and the Razor Wing emerged. It was beautiful in the way storms are beautiful, sleek, lethal, built entirely for killing. Metallic feathers, hooked talons, eyes that locked onto Jake instantly. The announcer's voice boomed, mocking, amused. The crowd laughed. Jake didn't look at them. He watched the creature. When it charged, it moved faster than most species could track. Jake dropped, rolled, barely avoiding the talons, and came up slashing. The blade kissed flesh. Blood sprayed. The laughter died. The razor wing struck him hard, sending him skidding across the sand. Armor sparked. He should have stayed down. He didn't. He stood, bleeding, smiling like someone enjoying a bad joke. For 15 minutes, the arena witnessed something unprecedented. Not dominance. Not skill. Stubborn survival. Jake learned the razor wing's rhythm. Dodged when he should have died. Took hits that would have ended others. Every time he fell, he rose again. When he threw his blade, even I thought he'd lost his mind. When it struck the creature's eye, the arena went silent. Moments later, the razor wing lay dead. The roar that followed shook the structure. Jake collapsed to one knee, lifted his shaking arm, and laughed. Medical teams rushed him out. He passed out smiling. 6 hours later, he woke asking for food. Word spread fast. Guards whispered. Prisoners leaned closer to their cell doors. Betting odds shifted. Jake Mercer had done the impossible. When they returned him to his cell days later, injured but alive, Grant spoke to him for the first time in cycles. "You fought like someone who refuses to end," the old fighter rumbled. Jake winced as he lay back. "Yeah. I have a problem with quitting." The next fights came quickly. A blade worm. Jake used terrain and patience, exhausting it before striking from above. 2 scorch hounds. He ran until they overheated, then finished them cleanly. A veteran Throxian fighter. Jake fought dirty. Sand in the eyes. A feint. A blade through a weak seam. 4 victories. The Crimson Pits buzzed with something dangerous. Hope. I overheard administrators arguing. The human was becoming a symbol. Symbols inspire rebellion. They decided escalation was necessary. That night, I went to Jake's cell. "You're facing something different next," I told him. He wiped blood from his blade and looked up. "Different how?" "The Dreadma." He went still. "Kills everyone," I continued. "Never lost." Jake exhaled slowly, fear finally visible. "Well," he said quietly, "that's unfortunate." "You should be afraid," I said. "I am," he admitted. "But I'm still going." He stared through the viewport at the empty arena. "Probably means I die tomorrow," he said. but probably isn't definitely. That distinction, I realized, was why he was still alive. The arena was packed beyond capacity for Fight 6. News of the Dreadma had spread fast. Vendors sold trinkets stamped with Jake's name. Some cheered for him. Others came only to watch the inevitable end. I stood at my post, unease crawling under my scales. This wasn't escalation. It was execution disguised as fairness. Jake entered through the south gate, armor patched, body taped where skin no longer held itself together properly. He looked smaller than before, not because he'd shrunk, but because the weight of the moment pressed down on him. Still, when he reached the sand, he rolled his shoulders and raised his blade. The north gate opened. The Dreadma stepped into the light. Even the crowd went quiet. It wasn't just size, though it was massive, or armor, thick plates that deflected light. It was how wrong it felt. 6 eyes moved independently. Its body flowed like a living weapon designed without mercy or waste. 43 fighters had died to it. None had lasted more than minutes. Jake charged. Not away. Toward it. The first swipe should have split him in half. He slid beneath it, blade scraping uselessly across armored flesh. The Dreadma struck again, slamming him into the sand hard enough to crack the surface. He coughed blood, rolled, moved before the killing blow landed. He climbed it. I still don't understand how that worked. He used protrusions in its armor like handholds, clinging as it thrashed and smashed itself against the arena wall. When it tried to crush him, Jake jumped free at the last second. Then he threw his blade. The weapon lodged into one of the creature's lower eyes. The Dreadma screamed. Blind fury replaced precision. It charged wildly. Jake moved inside its chaos, retrieved his blade, and drove it deeper. Same socket, sharper angle. The creature collapsed. Dead. The arena erupted. I didn't hear the noise. My ears rang too loudly with disbelief. They dragged Jake out barely conscious, laughing and shaking. In medical, scans showed injuries that should have killed him 3 times over. He survived anyway. 6 wins. After that, the pits changed. Fight 7 flooded the arena with water and released an electrodrake. Jake nearly drowned, used timing and desperation to force the creature to overload itself. He emerged shaking, burned alive. Fight 8 pitted him against 5 razor raptors. Coordinated. Fast. He lost a finger. He won anyway. Fight 9 was against a Grimlock champion who'd returned for glory. Jake took a shattered jaw and broken ribs. He used pain like fuel. He won. By then, no one laughed anymore. They watched. When Fight 10 was announced, the entire sector tuned in. Corvin the Undying. A Valoran battlemaster. Genetically enhanced. 12 victories. Perfect record. Jake stood across from him in the arena, battered beyond reason. He looked human in the rawest way possible, scarred, exhausted, refusing to fall. The fight lasted 17 minutes. The longest in Crimson Pit history. Corvin was superior in every measurable way. Jake was better at surviving. When Corvin overcommit, Jake accepted the strike, let it pierce his shoulder, and used the opening. Blade up. Through the chin. Into the brain. They fell together. Silence. Then Jake moved. He stood. 10 wins. Freedom. Warden Threws delivered the verdict through clenched teeth. The law was clear. Jake Mercer was released. Weeks later, I watched him board a transport bound for Earth. Still limping. Still smiling. He turned, waved at me. I waved back. The Crimson Pits continued after that. Prisoners still died. Crowds still cheered. But something had shifted. We had seen a human refuse to quit. And the galaxy would never forget what that meant. Jake's departure should have returned everything to normal. That's what the administration believed, at least. 1 human gone, 1 anomaly erased, and the Crimson Pits could resume their comfortable rhythm of blood and certainty. Fighters would die. Crowds would cheer. Odds would stay predictable. Order would remain intact. But systems don't reset that easily once something impossible slips through the crack. The first sign was subtle. Prisoners started lasting longer. Not winning, just surviving a few seconds more than expected. Then a few minutes. Guards whispered about it during shift changes. Did you see that one? He should have gone down faster. That move looked planned. They weren't copying Jake's technique. They couldn't. Most species didn't share human physiology. What they copied was something harder to define. Refusal. Grant, the old Baldner in cell block 7, survived his 13th fight a week after Jake left. No one expected that. He came back broken, barely breathing, but alive. When I checked on him, he looked at me with tired eyes and said, "The human was right. Every victory matters. Even the small ones." Hope spread like a quiet infection. The betting pools changed next. Odds fluctuated more wildly. Spectators stopped assuming outcomes. The crowd noise shifted. Less laughter at the start of fights, more tension. People leaned forward instead of lounging back. They wanted to see who would endure, not just who would die. The warden noticed. New regulations appeared. Shorter preparation times. Tougher matchups earlier in the progression. Fighters who showed prolonged resistance were flagged for escalation. Fairness on paper remained unchanged. In practice, the system grew crueler. Still, it didn't fully work. Because once you've seen someone beat the impossible, you can't unknow it. I tried to return to routine. Logged reports. Escorted prisoners. Pretended I didn't hear Jake's voice sometimes when the corridors were quiet. Laughing, singing, refusing to acknowledge the end. I told myself it was stress memory. Neural echo. Anything but truth. Then a message came through official channels. A diplomatic communique from Earth. Human authorities acknowledged Jake Mercer's return. Medical reports classified. Psychological evaluation ongoing. Public explanation simplified to wrongful detention during off-world incident. No mention of the Crimson Pit. But attached to the message was a personal addendum, routed through back channels. For Vrock. It was short. Just text. "Hey. Made it home. Sister cried, then punched me, then hugged me. Worth it. Still limping. Still alive. Hope you're doing okay. Jake." I read it 3 times. Humans had a word for what I felt then. Gratitude. Another for the discomfort beneath it. Guilt. I'd spent 17 cycles enforcing a system I told myself was inevitable. Necessary. Neutral. Jake proved it wasn't. He didn't destroy the Crimson Pit. He didn't overthrow the administration. He didn't spark rebellion or riot. He did something worse. He showed that survival wasn't reserved for the strongest, fastest, or most lethal. Sometimes it belonged to the stubborn. To the ones who kept standing because they refused to accept the math. Months passed. The galaxy moved on, as it always does. New crises. New wars. New distractions. But human presence quietly expanded. Trade agreements. Military observers. Medical exchanges. And everywhere humans went, stories followed. Not propaganda. Stories. About endurance. About persistence. About refusing to quit even when quitting made sense. I still work at the Crimson Pit. I still open cells and escort prisoners and watch fights I wish I didn't have to see. The place hasn't become kinder. If anything, it's more cautious now. Because the galaxy learned something it can't unlearn. Humans don't need claws or fangs or armor to be dangerous. They weaponize hope. Late some nights, when the arena is empty and the sand has been smoothed over, I stand at the railing and look down. I think about a soft-skinned primate from a blue planet who walked into death laughing and walked out alive through sheer refusal. And I understand, finally, why the galaxy will never truly feel safe again. Not because humans are violent, but because when faced with extinction, they don't accept it. They negotiate. They endure. They win.